morning, everybody. Clearly it's early on student time, so glad you're here. Hopefully this is a great day. As Minar mentioned, we've been doing this for a while. This was originally conceptualized as something that computer science, who was then in the College of Arts and Sciences and the College of Business, could collaboratively do to look forward. NETT Day stands, of course, for Northeastern Empowerment Through Technology. So it's an acronym, and then day, obviously. We pick one day a year to do this. So over the years, this has always been forward-looking at how technology has come into and facilitates our lives. And, you know, when computer science moved into the college about 3 years ago, you know, it got even more fun because the brainstorming started among the faculty in the hallways instead of waiting for a committee meeting. And so it's been fun to watch it evolve. And, you know, we're delighted. This is one of the signature events of the college every fall. So, so with that, I say welcome to all of you to this 15th NETT Day. And back to you for the next introduction, I believe. So thank you, Minar, and everyone who put this together.
Please join me welcoming Don Ginocchio. He's an IT leader with more than 40 years of global expertise. He's gonna talk about design thinking, the secrets to solving complex problems. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you. You stole the answer before I was able to make the presentation. I hope some of you heard Chris's talk. It was some very good career advice. I think I was listening in the back, and he had some excellent advice. So I would strongly support the things he and his professional friend here, including LinkedIn, by the way, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Always start the presentation with the jacket on, and then now I'm taking it off because I'm an Italian-American descent, and I wave my arms a lot. So bear with me. Okay, well, just a quick check on who's here. Did any of you hear me speak last year in that day? Please say no. Good. How about March of 2023 when I was here for IBC? Okay, great. None of this will be a repeat for you. I have a timeless topic to talk about, and I'm very pleased to be here and share with you. I hope you'll get something out of it. The other thing I want to ask is, so how many of you are in the College of Business and Technology? Just a quick show of hands. Any arts and sciences students here? Okay, well, we need them too, as you'll hear here in a few minutes. But anyway, I wish you the best with your degree. And if time allows, I'll give you my version of career advice for what it's worth. I have a slightly different history than Chris's, of course, but I have worked in the technology field for a long time. As Sigda mentioned, I'm going to talk about design thinking and why I think it's very important for whatever you choose to do as professionals or as human beings. And anybody ever heard of design thinking? Studied design thinking? Okay, great. Well, you're going to learn something today. The one key aspect of design thinking I'm going to talk about is empathy, the process of empathy, not the human feeling of empathy, but the process of empathy, which is something you can learn and practice. And I'll try to convince you why that's important. And then talk a little bit about business and why building a design-oriented team is important. So a lot of what I did in my career was toward the end of my career was work with colleges and universities and students like yourselves to try to help them prepare for the future of work. I'm sure many of you have worked in various jobs and you hope to work in other jobs in your life and in your careers. I worked for 6 different companies. We'll talk about that in a second. But work is evolving and changing. And as a citizen and a business professional, I want you to be successful because it's good for the society we live in. It's good for our world. It's good for you. And being successful is not automatic. It takes capabilities and skills and experiences. And I hope you'll take something away from this one today that will help you prepare for the future work. So my objective is to teach you a little bit about the little basics of design thinking and why it applies to whatever domain you are in or choose to be in, particularly in technology and business, but there are other domains as well. And hopefully inspire to learn more. There's a lot of resources I'll point you to the end that if you're interested and excited, you can do more reading and learning on your own, because you're not going to learn it all in an hour or so today. Okay. I'm getting old, so I may have to look at the screen occasionally. I apologize. It's a little too small for me back there. It happens. You'll be there with me someday. Anyway, I worked about 40 years in business. I worked for IBM for a long time and McAfee for a long time and SAP, a big software company, for a long time. So I spent about 2/3 of my career in technology companies and the other third in corporate business IT roles. So I was an IT director executive at Abbott Labs, which is medical products. I was a CIO at Teleflex Medical, and I worked at Hewitt Associates, which is now part of Aon. So I tell people I was either selling or doing information technology. And I would tell you, this is just something to think about as you pursue your careers. Doing is a lot harder than selling. Is my experience. We'll talk about selling a little bit later, but both are interesting. And really what I tried to do is help people get value from their IT investments, whether it was a computer or a software system or an app or a new technology startup. I try to help my customers or my constituents in my companies get value for it. The last part, as I said, I was working with universities, and the key theme of what we were doing with universities at the end of my professional assignment was we were trying to prepare people for the future of work. As I said, I may walk around a little bit, so bear with me. Okay. And the premise was that if we taught people like yourselves or professionals entering the workforce to use a design mindset, and I'll tell you what a design mindset is. We think like designers think, and I'll talk a little bit about how designers think. You all know people that are designers. They may be friends, family, or you use their products when you buy something. Designer was behind it. And then by doing that, it would help you develop skill sets that are valued by industry. And I'm sure many of you are thinking, what am I going to be challenged or given the opportunity to do in my next few jobs? And I'll give you some opinions about that. But basically, we need people with these mindsets, in addition to the technical skills and the scientific skills and the computer skills and the business skills that you're learning. Those are all very important too. But I'm going to try to make the argument that you want to build some of these design skills as well. And then by doing this, we'll help you thrive in the rapidly dynamic world we live in. It's not boring out there, right? You know this better than I do. So you have to be nimble. And one way to be nimble is to use these skills. And I made the mistake of leaving the clicker up here. I apologize. Okay. Is it okay if I walk around? Does it bother you? I won't touch anybody. Okay, so here's a little bit about my last employer, SAP, that says sort of three obvious things, right? Things are changing faster all the time. You've heard that a million times. I don't need to tell you that, right? And it's not going to slow down. Here's the bad news. It's going to get faster, right? It's going to get faster. It's not going to slow down. And if you're, again, not to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but if you're my age, it really seems fast, right? People have to adapt faster, but my favorite, I was laughing the other day. I asked I have two adult children who are both married, and I was talking with my son-in-law about which iPhone do you have? And he says, oh, I got the latest one, the iPhone 11. And I said, I don't think that's the latest. There's a 16 now, right? And I'm sure there'll be a 17, sure. And they come out about every 18 months, right? And mine is, I've got a 5-year-old Samsung, and it still works. And I'm like, I don't need all those features, but when I get a new one, I'll either break it or decide I can afford a new one, which is about $1,000, right? I'll have to adapt quickly to the new features and functions. But one of the things, and we've all experienced this during the pandemic, which is an unfortunate human event for the whole world, is, we learned some new things. And that was that sitting in your room on a Zoom call, you may not have had this experience as much as others did, but a little bit in your education perhaps. But in the business world, people were working in their basements for a long time. I work with a lot of young professionals and entrepreneurs, and one of the things I've learned from consulting firms, where a lot of you will probably end up going working, is when they were trying to you heard these back to the office movements. You read about it like Amazon and other big tech companies and consulting firms and Ernst & Young. They're saying, hey, consultants, we want you to come back to the office now, work at the office because it's good for us to. And the young, I apologize for using young, let's just say newer professionals, they want to come in because they need human interaction. 75% of the human race are extroverts. That's statistically true. I'm an introvert, by the way. You won't believe that by the fact that I'm standing up here talking. I'm a situational extrovert. I can be extroverted here today, but once I leave here, I really don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm kidding, of course. But anyway, most people are extroverts. They need human interaction. We need to interact with others to accomplish things. The problem was all the managers don't want to come in back to the office. All the people that have other things to do in life and young families, they don't want to come back to the office, but the young professionals do. So they've been struggling to get people to come back to the office. But one of the important things we learned about those, we have to think about the human side. I know it's an overused term, but the human side of things. And so this is one thing I hope you'll take away from this pitch is it's not just about the technology. It's not just about the business application. It's about the human dimension. And these skill sets that I'm going to teach you about are things you can learn and practice to take advantage of the human dimension. So what's a future of work? This is one opinion. You may hear others. The one key thing I like to tell students is you're learning a field. You might be learning software development or business technology or engineering or whatever field you're in. You have to be detailed to get a degree. You want to earn a degree in computer science, you have to be good at software engineering. But that's nowhere near enough, right? Because you're going to need interdisciplinary team. When you go into the workforce, you're going to be working with people from finance, from marketing, from engineering, from product development, and of course, computer people. So that's how work gets done, right? Interdisciplinary teams. And one thing is colleges don't tend to do is prepare you well for interdisciplinary teams. In my experience, that they do many things great. NEIU does many things. They're preparing you well for your field of expertise, but you don't have a lot of experience with interdisciplinary teams. So one of the things I'm emphasizing today is that these are the type of things that professional people, that there's a need for in industry. And they're not like, they don't say computer programmer or financial accountant or anything. They talk, these are thinking jobs, right? These are thinking jobs. And you may not do exactly what's up here, but you'll do a lot of things that are up here in today's business world. Even think about the word prompt. Are you familiar with the word prompt? There's actually a job called be an AI prompter, because how you ask the question when you're using AI systems, right, is very important. How you ask the question, you may get a different answer when you're dealing with artificial intelligence. So some of these jobs are about that, is how do you ask the right question? How do you do the right preparation for the systems or business solutions you're developing? And you'll see a lot of things we'll talk about here about human-oriented design, testing, validation, things like that during this process. So there are professional designers in the world. These are the kinds of things that they study. I'll show you in a second here that NEIU has classes for professional designers. Perhaps some of you have taken them. And they learn, this is a 1 year old, but this is right off the NEIU website. There are classes. And if you have the time and the interest, maybe some of you will get excited after this, take interaction design class. Would be a great one for technologists, interaction design, right? Because how the human interacts with the system, how the human interacts with the app is a area of expertise that's very important for technology professionals. How are people using this? So anyway, your school does it, and there are other schools that do this, but basically this is what designers do, right? You can read that, but the basic thing is that they're good at communications. They are good at collaboration type skills, and designers bring these skills to their jobs as graphic designers or industrial designers or product designers. And I'm not telling any of you that should be professional designers. I'm just telling you that we need designers in the world. And that was the basic point of what we did at the in my professional life is we need more people with design skills because they're working in interdisciplinary teams. They're applying all this really rapidly technology to people before the people can adapt to it. And you have to think about how are the people embracing and learning this new technology before you just throw it at them. So anybody want to guess how many designers you need? Let's say in an engineering or a product, not a number, but what ratio, what percent of the workforce is a good design company need to be? There's no wrong answer. Well, there is a wrong answer, but how many? What percent of the workforce in a company should be designers? 5%? 25%. Okay, 1/4. Other guesses? 100%? No, but I appreciate it. Any other guesses? Yes. 50%. Okay. Well, you're all trying to set me up. No, it's basically 1 in 10. A company that's design oriented, product, Procter and Gamble, consumer products company. A lot of good companies you'll see on a list here, they tend to have one designer. So one designer for every 10 software engineers, or one designer for every manufacturing engineer, or one designer. The companies that get high marks for being the companies that make the products you want to buy, like Apple. I'll pick on Apple. I've never owned an iPhone, but I know a lot of people do, and they like them because they're easy to use, right? Anyway, but the reality is most companies only have 1 in 1,000. And there's a consequence of that. So that's why I'm here making this pitch to you is I want you to learn these skills so that you can help your companies, whether it's your own startup or you go work for IBM like I did. IBM needs innovators and entrepreneurs and collaborators, and so does Google. We all need design-minded people so that they can produce better products and services which I can buy or use. Okay? So the basic theme is design-minded innovation puts the user first. Puts the user first. What does the user need? What does the user want? How do they work with the system? How do they work with the product? How do they work with the service or solution that I am building or proposer? We think about the user first. And you have to invest. You don't just guess what they know or think. You have to do some research. I'll teach you how. So you obviously want to build a cool product or cool application or cool software solution, but you want to do it customer oriented. And basically that's where design thinking came into the thing. Basically, technology by itself is not enough anymore. We got technology out the wazoo. Are anybody familiar with Moore's law? See, I'm dating myself. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Moore's law, right? So the computer gets, twice as fast every entry, or 10 times faster every 18 months, or I don't even remember what it means anymore. But it basically means things are getting smaller and faster and cheaper, and they're going to keep getting smaller and faster and cheaper. There's seats up front, same price. Come on up. Things are going to keep getting smaller and faster and cheaper, which is why there's going to be an iPhone 17 next year, right? Because they could cram more function into a smaller space for the same cost. So that's going to keep happening, but that's not going to make people, I haven't bought, my Samsung phone I bought in 2019. I'm not excited about getting a new one. In fact, I don't want to get the new one because I'll have to learn something new. So technology, in my case, maybe you're different, but in my case, the cool new technology alone is like, what's it going to do for me? What's it going to add value to my life, my business, my family, whatever. So design thinking came along, and there was a lot of, goes back a few years, but there was a lot of articles that said, oh, this is powerful stuff. It's a methodology. It's not the only methodology. You will learn other methodologies here at school and in life. It's another one you should be familiar with and decide, what can I take from this? I'm going to suggest one very important thing called empathy. What can I take from this and make this part of my skill set? For those of you that are here to listen to Chris, and I forget the other gentleman's name, he talked about developing your own brand and developing your own resume. This is a skill that ought to be in your toolkit. That's my punchline. And the companies, I mentioned some of them earlier, my company was SAP, but these are a lot of companies that I hope you think highly of, mostly highly of. And they're good at designing products that people want to buy or want to use. And statistically, they've done better than companies that aren't design oriented. It's again, it's not a panacea, it's not the perfect answer, but it's another thing that these companies bring to the party. So what is it? Well, 3 definitions. This is from Fast Company. As I said earlier, it's a methodology. It's repeatable. There's academic discipline to it. There's tools and techniques that I will point you some resources you can use, and it's easy once you learn it. In the academic world, this comes from the design school at Stanford. They were a leader in this field when they first started teaching design thinking out there. They're still a leader. It does draw on engineering and design methodologies, but it also draws from the arts. You know, a dancer, an artist, a musician, and some of you may qualify as that. They think and look at the world slightly differently, not better or worse, just differently. I'm actually, I play in a band. I got a rehearsal tonight. I play drums in a big jazz band. And, you know, music is different than baseball. And baseball is different than engineering and so on and so forth. So the point is that designers have a different skill set and a mindset, and it helps round out some of the technical disciplines. And then again, just to reemphasize, it's a user, you know, centering on the user's needs, centering on the user's perspective, living in the shoes, if you will, of the people you're designing for. And a very important question, I want to make sure I mention it now, is who am I designing for? When you're building the new app or a new software system or a new inventory management system or a new HR system, who's using it? What do they need? What's their job? What's their function? If you're not thinking about that, you're probably not going to build a very good solution. Because we all have a tendency to think, well, everybody's like me. You know, it takes a while to learn this, but of course the truth is no one is like you. We're all different. We have different strengths, weaknesses, experiences, things like that. And you have to understand what those are and design for some of those permutations if you want a lot of people to buy or use your solution. So this is a very important chart. I want to make sure I spend a few minutes of. So where does innovation happen, right? You're all studying to be innovators in business and technology. Where does it happen? It happens at the intersection of these 3 things. Something that's desirable. Somebody likes it, wants to use it. It's beautiful. Something that's feasible. It works. It can be built. It's reliable. And then finally, and this is a part where a lot of technologists fail, it has to be viable. Somebody's willing to buy it, pay for it at the price you're presenting, or you can make a profit at the price you're presenting. And so in classic academic things, you usually have the designers, the marketing and salespeople who say, look, let's use a simple example. We're making a chair. This is the most beautiful chair you've ever seen. It's got leather and you can lean back in it, and it's a beautiful color, and it's very, you know, it's gorgeous to look at. The engineer and the manufacturing people are saying, well, I can build that with wood and metal and leather, and it costs this much, the materials, and it's safe. You know, it'll hold the weight of a human being. It won't wear out. That's the feasibility thing. It can be manufactured in our plant. And then the finance, the CFO says, okay, well, what does it cost to build, and what do I have to price it at to make money? 2 of these won't work. You have to have all 3, right? It has to be desirable. Somebody wants it. It has to be something you can build, make, distribute, and it has to have a financial thing. We live, you know, there's many cons to capitalism. There's many pros and cons, but that's the system we're living in here, at least in the United States, right? And one of the key concepts of capitalism is value. How do you provide value? Is somebody willing to pay for it or use it because it provides value to them? So all 3 are important. And another thing I told you about interdisciplinary teams. So when you're working on if you are a software engineer and you go work for Google, when you graduate from here, you're not going to just work with software engineers, right? There's going to be finance people. There's going to be marketing people. There's going to be product development people that you're going to have to work with to create innovation. I work with a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, I told you, and a lot of times people have a really cool idea. I have this really cool idea. Great. Cool idea for you. Does anybody else think that's a cool idea? So, and often the answer is no. You think it's a cool idea. And it is for you, but it's not for you don't care about 5 people liking it. You want 5 million people to like it if you want to make money, right? Or you have a really cool idea, but it's a software engineer to computer science says, I can't build that. It's impossible. It would take, 8 bajillion lines of code and it would never work. Cool idea, but you can't build it. Or worst of all, the finance person comes in and says, well, nobody's going to spend $500,000 for that app on their iPhone, right? Nobody's going to pay $500,000 for that. So you need all 3. And one thing I tell people, particularly that are studying business technology, is when you're working on projects here or in your early professional life, make friends with the marketing and finance people. They have a lot to offer. Technology by itself doesn't suffice. So I'm okay on time. So the whole idea is to do research. And another key thing I want to emphasize is testing and validation. And testing and validation can be inexpensive. You don't have to build an app on a phone to test it. You could say, I'm just going to draw you on this piece of paper how this app will work or how the screen might look and say, what do you think? And take that feedback sincerely and use it. We'll talk about that in a second. So I said earlier, I'm an entrepreneur, and I said, I got this cool idea. But one thing I want to emphasize in a design mindset is you don't know the answer yet. You have to go find out what the answer is. And the way you do that is do it by research. Talk to potential users, talk to others in the field, create options, test those options. So in my chair example, simple chair example, I would say, okay, well, let's go talk to people that sit in chairs. Is that chair comfortable? Do you like that? Would you rather, it be leather, wood, metal? Is it, does your butt fit in it? Excuse my gross language. Will it fit in with your decorations in your living room, et cetera, et cetera? And, you take all that information, you say, okay, well, I was going to build a chair out of wood, but people really want a chair that's made out of metal. Everybody told me they want a chair made out of metal, and you adapt. So the main thing is don't assume at the early part of the process, don't assume you know the answer. Do some research, try different options, test those options before you build a chair. And this is the official process. So empathize means learn about the users, walk in their shoes, do some research. I'll teach you some tools. Do some further synthesis and definition. So if you talk to 100 people and 70 of them tell you want a metal chair and 30 tell you want a wood chair, you're probably going to go for the metal chair, bigger market, right? Then you ideate, you draw some pictures of the chair, you show these pictures of the chair to people, you have them sit on a chair made of wood, a chair made of metal, and you test that before you go build 1,000 chairs. Okay, I'm going to show you a video here, a very short video that's an example. It's a couple of years ago. It's a tough video to watch because it's about newborns, but it talks about how powerful this method of talking to people about what they need can be. First, you have to listen to the ad. It'll be, there we go.
Please close your eyes and open your hand. Now imagine what you could place in your hand. An apple, maybe your wallet. Now open your eyes. What about a life? What you see here is a premature baby. He looks like he's resting peacefully, but in fact he's struggling to stay alive because he can't regulate his own body temperature. This baby is so tiny he doesn't have enough fat on his body to stay warm. Sadly, 20 million babies like this are born every year around the world. 4 million of these babies die annually. But the bigger problem is that the ones who do survive grow up with severe long-term health problems. The reason is because in the first month of a baby's life, its only job is to grow. If it's battling hypothermia, its organs can't develop normally, resulting in a range of health problems from diabetes to heart disease to low IQ. Imagine Many of these problems could be prevented if these babies were just kept warm. That is the primary function of an incubator. But traditional incubators require electricity and cost up to $20,000. So you're not going to find them in rural areas of developing countries. As a result, parents resort to local solutions like tying hot water bottles around their babies' bodies, or placing them under light bulbs like the ones you see here, methods that are both ineffective and unsafe. I've seen this firsthand over and over again. On one of my first trips to India, I met this young woman, Savita, who had just given birth to a tiny premature baby, Rani. She took her baby to the nearest village clinic, and the doctor advised her to take Rani to a city hospital so she could be placed in an incubator. But that hospital was over 4 hours away, and Savita didn't have the means to get there. So her baby died. Inspired by this story and dozens of other similar stories like this, my team and I realized what was needed was a local solution, something that could work without electricity, that was simple enough for a mother or a midwife to use, given that the majority of births still take place in the home. We needed something that was portable, something that could be sterilized and reused across multiple babies, and something ultra low cost compared to the $20,000 that an incubator in the US costs. So this is what we came up with. What you see here looks nothing like an incubator. It looks like a small sleeping bag for a baby. You can open it up completely. It's waterproof. There's no seams inside, so you can sterilize it very easily. But the magic is in this pouch of wax. This is a phase change material. It's a wax-like substance with a melting point of human body temperature, 37 degrees Celsius. You can melt this simply using hot water. And then when it melts, it's able to maintain one constant temperature for 4 to 6 hours at a time, after which you simply reheat the pouch. So you then place it into this little pocket back here. And it creates a warm microenvironment for the baby. Looks simple, but we've reiterated this dozens of times by going into the field to talk to doctors, moms, and clinicians to ensure that this really meets the needs of the local communities. We plan to launch this product in India in 2010. And the target price point will be $25, less than 0.1% of the cost of a traditional incubator. Over the next 5 years, we hope to save the lives of almost 1 million babies. But the longer-term social impact is a reduction in population growth. This seems counterintuitive, but it turns out that as infant mortality is reduced, population sizes also decrease because parents don't need to anticipate that their babies are going to die. We hope that the Embrace Infant Warmer and other simple innovations like this represent a new trend for the future of technology. Simple, localized, affordable solutions that have the potential to make huge social impacts. In designing this, we followed a few basic principles. We really try to understand the end user, in this case, people like Sugita. We try to understand the root of the problem rather than being biased by what already exists. And then we thought of the most simple solution we could to address this problem. In doing this, I believe we can truly bring technology to the masses, and we can save millions of lives through the simple warmth of an embrace.
I don't think we need to show the next one. You can go back to the PowerPoint, please. So I wanted you to see that story just because it illustrates a couple purposes. If you first were faced with that problem, my reaction would be, well, let's build more cheap incubators. You know, my 2 children were adults now. They were born at Lutheran General Hospital in Park Ridge. There's plenty of incubators there, thank God. But they aren't in third world countries, right? And so if you just use the assumption of what you think, you wouldn't ever discover, without talking to these young mothers around the world, what was needed that was different, cheap, and easy in that. And so the good news about Embrace Global is they've saved 700,000 babies. Just by using this user interface. Now, I know you work in different fields and you may not have this kind of impact in the world, but don't assume you can't. Who knows what's ahead for any of us. The idea is to talk to the user. Remember some of the things she said there. We tried a lot of different designs, right? We tried different things. We kept going back to the field to talk to the designers. So the key thing is talk to the user, iterate, try different things until you find what works. Those are 2 key concepts in design-minded thinking. Okay. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit specifically about the first part about that is how do you do your research? Excuse me, I need a drink. So the process of empathy, and this isn't about being an empathetic person, it's about the process of empathy. How do you learn about these people you're designing for? It might be a software user, it might be a technology colleague, it may be somebody else in the company you're working for or your customers. So you can try it, you can do it yourself, use the app yourself, you can watch others do it. You can, of course, interview people, and there are techniques for all these things. And I'm sorry, I keep forgetting my clicker. So I'm going to run just a few minutes of this video this is an expert from the Stanford D School who's going to talk about the process of empathy. And there's two things I want to emphasize. There's, of course, when you interview somebody, you tend to listen to what they say, right? But what you don't have insight into is their feelings and what they're thinking. You can observe them and listen to them, but you can't the feelings and thinking. So he talks a little bit about how to do that, which it's. Can you bring my PowerPoint back up there? It'll work. Yeah, this will work if you just go back to slideshow mode. Just a few minutes. Whoops, maybe. Hit enter. It should work. Here we go. Maybe. It was working earlier. Where is she when I need? Well, maybe I won't show you. See, technology. Oh, there she is. It worked earlier, right? Just going to show if I'm sorry about the delay. Yeah. It should run right out of the slideshow, I think. If you just hit enter, go back and hit enter. Well, we may not be able to show you. You'll be stuck with me telling you. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. Just go back to the PowerPoint. It's fine. I can speak to it. It's dead. Okay. That's all right. Just go to the next chart, please. The 33. Just go ahead. There we go. Okay, so key thing about doing research is it's not just what you hear and you see. It's also, what are they saying? What are they doing? What do they think and they believe? And what are their feelings? So what he said in his video is talking about if you run into somebody rushing through an airport with a suitcase, you assume that they're pushing people out of the way. You don't really know their story unless you ask them about it. And he tells a little story about if you make assumptions, you're often wrong. So we're going to practice empathy here for a minute to give you a chance. So this is a group exercise. I'd like you to just pair up with a group of 3. People sitting near you are fine. It'll be fun, trust me. It's going to be a fun exercise. And you're going to interview each other on something. I'm going to tell you the question in a minute. So just, grab 2 people around you when we get started here. Please participate. You'll enjoy it. But when you're listening to them, listen to what they say and what they do. But make sure you are listening for what are they thinking and feeling, because they're going to tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you what the story is in a second, okay? You got somebody you can talk to? It's time to make a new friend. All right, here we go. I need groups of 3 at least, okay? It could be group of 4 as well. Okay. Whoops. I was supposed to, is this my PowerPoint or is this my thing? Well, I'm going to cheat now. I'll just tell you. So the first question, the first interviewee, you're all going to take a turn. The first interview is tell the other 2 people about a recent gift you purchased. Okay. It could be for yourself or somebody else. Doesn't matter. Just tell the story of a gift you purchased. Okay. So go. You got 60 seconds to tell the story. 1. Okay, that's enough now. That's enough for that one. So that's story number one. You can stop. Okay, so story number two. Now we should introduce someone else in the group, but bear with me while I find my cheat sheet. I don't want to show you the answer accidentally here. Okay, so the next team member, somebody else, tell the story of the last memorable gift you purchased or special gift. Tell a story about a special gift you purchased. So someone else in the group could tell that story. Go ahead. Okay, that's probably enough for. Okay, so third little interview, third story, and two people listen and one people tell the story. So the third story is tell the team about the last bad gift you received. The last bad gift. Just tell the story. You don't have to embarrass any family members or anything. Just the last bad gift. You tell that story about the last bad gift you received. So go ahead. Okay, that's probably enough. So if you never got a bad gift, good, you're a lucky person. But we all have. And you know, when I was standing up here, when I bring up that third thing, you could change the energy gets different in the room, right? Because there's more emotion, right? There's probably, if you're listening to the stories, you probably sense a little more feeling, maybe upset, hurt, laughing, whatever, you know, you got some weird gift from somebody. But the idea of that little exercise is now that you did those three little interviews, how would you use that information to design a gift-giving process? If you were designing a gift-giving process, you might say, well, you know, ask the person what they want, or buy the right size shirt, or whatever it was, you know, that you heard from those stories. What I wanted just I know that was just a little exercise, but I wanted you to get the idea of what were people thinking and feeling when those stories happened, right? It's not just about the gift or the price of the gift or today is my mother's 94th birthday, by the way, God bless her. And it's not just about the gift itself, it's about the process and the feelings and the thinking that goes on with the gift process. So that's what empathy is understanding to the best of your ability what the user needs and is thinking and feeling. So it's a little one. So there are skills. There's a lot. I'm going to go into some resources if you have an interest in learning more about this in a little bit of time we have. There's a group of those companies I talked about that were design oriented. They formed a nonprofit coalition. It's called Design at Business. The website is up there. They have a lot of resources, a few of which I'm going to talk about. They have some learning resources. They talk about the things they're doing in their companies. You can see it's basically these design-minded entrepreneurs that I'm trying to help you become. So that's a great resource. And one of the things they defined is 3 or 5 key skills that are necessary to be successful. No human being has all of these in, 100. You can't be 100% good at everything. But you may find if you look up there, well, what sort of describes me? And I'll give you in the presentation, your professors have it. You can have access to this if you want. Excuse me, or you can find the document about this at Design at Business, that website. Anyway, when I talked about you're trying to make design mindsets, this is more specifics on what does that mean? Okay, so shamelessly human-centered. You need somebody on the team that is thinking about the end user, thinking about the human being, thinking about the how do we incorporate people into our design. Confidently iterative. This is somebody that's not afraid to try new things, to test and test again. One test is not enough, right? You have to go back and try different designs, try different things, and iteration is very important because you learn everything. You learn something every time you do an iteration, right? Gritty, somebody who sticks it out, that even though it's hard, they keep trying, right? And you will encounter failures. One thing about good college students, and I'm going to give you all credit for being good college students, is you have a lot of success, hopefully, in your life, right? In business, you're going to encounter failure. It's just life, right? You're going to encounter barriers and you're going to make mistakes, and we're all human beings. So the question is, do you have the power to stick with it and fight through when you know there's a good outcome out there? I like to call this one a troublemaker. This is sort of what I was good at. I would always say things like, well, have we thought about doing this a different way? Maybe there's a better way to do something. So this is the person that gets the group to think differently. And then, as I said earlier, we live in a capitalist society. We still have to be business aware. What works in business? What works for our customers? What works for the chief financial officer and our business owners, because we operate in a business. So those are the skill sets. There's a book all about it. There's documentation at that Design on Business. I encourage you to look at it if you have an interest. It's a very fine resource. There's also an example of how do you apply those skills in different roles if you're a manager or a technical manager or an executive, which I hope you all will be if you want to be. And then, okay, great, Don. I'm sold. How do I use this? Well, the punchline is spend a lot of time doing research and synthesizing your research before you do the design, and test everything before you build it. So use a simple software application. I'm sure you've all heard that it costs a lot more money to repair software late in the cycle than it does early in the cycle. So you want to make their changes and adjustments before you write a single line of code, right? You want the writing of the code should be that we know exactly what we're doing and we're just going to write the code. Make sure your user knows what it's going to look like. And again, I'm going to show you a little video about, I may need you to click on this one too in a second, about prototyping, because a prototype doesn't have to be sophisticated prototype. It can just be a hand drawing, but it helps you get feedback. And then, you want the button up on the right corner. You want it to be blue. You don't want it to be red. If you know all that before you start writing code, you're going to be a lot better off. So I don't know if you can click on that link. Let me get their attention. Can you try, where are you? Can you try clicking on that hyperlink? Let's just see if we get lucky. Yeah, it's fine. It's safe. There we go. Scroll down to the video. There. Oh, you went past it. There you go. Please run that. So this is an example of prototyping that's very cheap and easy. You can go back to the PowerPoint. So that's a free tool. You can go get it and say, well, geez, John, it seems like kind of silly to be drawing little pictures like that. But let me tell you, it's a lot faster and cheaper to do it that way than to write code, as many of you probably know. So a lot of, if you've seen startup presentation, I'm sure a lot of you have seen entrepreneurs do their startup. They rarely actually show you the app. They kind of show you what it might look like, or they show you a picture of the app, right? They don't show you the app because the app usually doesn't work in those demos. So this is just an example of prototyping, and I want to encourage you to test, get pro. And it could be, there's a, I was in sales a lot, there's a thing called the pencil sale where you just scribble out on a piece of paper what you're proposing. And it's a very powerful tool because, again, what you're trying to do is get feedback. Feedback is a gift. Take it and use it. Get it whenever you can. It's one of my career advice statements as well. And particularly in product development or design-oriented innovation, you want to get as much feedback as you can before you start spending money building the wrong thing. Okay? All right. So there's a link in there for that. If you're interested in SAP Scenes, you can go there. They have PowerPoint templates and things like that. Okay, almost there. D-School, I talked about the Stanford D-School. They have resources. There's the website there for you. I encourage you to read their stuff. There's some excellent resources there, including some self-learning. My old employer has a bunch of classes that you can take on SAP Learning. Learning.sap.com. Design thinking in a nutshell is a great one. Software design for non-designers is a great one. So there are other resources you can find. Again, I'm just suggesting that you add this to your repertoire of skills if you want to be effective in the future of work. Okay, take a breather here, and if we have time, I'll give you my career advice, but I'd rather take any questions you might have about anything I've said. So we have a mic. Anyone? Raise your hand. All answers are free. Sure, we'll, thank you, Sig. Once the first question comes, they're easy.
Hi, just some question for the prototype. In this case that you are showing to us, it looks like the same of PDCA is a quality tool that you need to plan everything before to check and test and validate in delivery. Is it similar to the same with this one that you showed to us?
So you said BCCA?
PDCA.
Oh,
Plan, do,
PDCA.
check, action.
Yes, there are similarities, sure. And there's a lot of methodologies that you'll see similarities with this methodology. Again, it's not perfect. I would, there's certain elements of it that are powerful. Like there's a thing in design thinking, for example, called a persona. It's basically what's the archetype of the person you're designing for. Very powerful tool, and there's forms that you can use to say, I'm designing for some guy that's 65 years old and used to work for a living, which is different than designing from a 25-year-old, right? So there you will see similar elements, I'm sure, but you'll also see some things that are different. Again, I think this is a part of what works for me and what works in the situation I'm in. This is not the right methodology for there's a fire in the corner of the room, everybody go to the door. You're not doing design thinking for that, right? You're getting out. But this is for other types of thing where you really need the user perspective for it to be successful. Okay, thank you for the question. Others? Yes. Hello.
Oh,
There you go.
hello. Hi, thank you for your time. I have a question about how you were saying that designers should be 1 in 10
Yes.
in companies, and right now it's looking like, what did you say, 1 in
1,000.
1 in
Yeah,
1,000? Are
1,000.
companies moving towards that growth in designers?
Yes, I think people are more, I think the industry is moving that way because of some of this industry knowledge that's out there. First of all, designers are very expensive, just like computer software programmers are expensive. So there's always a question of, can we afford to hire another graphic designer or another interaction designer, or a new industrial design is another big field. They're very expensive. They get paid more than software developers do. So that's an issue. The other is some companies just haven't really bought into the need for design. Again, it's not the right answer for all companies. You know, these companies, if you have consumer products, my son works for Mars Candy. And you may not think they design Snickers bars, but they actually do. I mean, they test different flavors. Like there's a pecan version, there's a Snickers that's shaped like a pumpkin you can buy this month, you know, and these are different things that designers come up with, hopefully that when you go into Walgreens, which is the company my son sells to, you buy more Snickers. So they need designers. Anybody that has consumer products, Procter and Gamble, technology companies, you'll see higher levels of design. And, you know, if this is something you're interested in, you don't necessarily, you might want to just test the company as you're interviewing. You know, how do you design your products? How many designers will I be working with if you're not a designer? Because you want designers to help you and work with you. You want them to tell you, give you information so that you build a better solution, better software product. So I think the trend is that way. But it's the whole point of our initiative was it's not fast enough. It's not fast enough. Why does SAP care about this? Because we want people to write more good software. We want people to buy more software and to use more software. We're in the software business. And the only way that's going to happen is if we build beautiful solutions that use design thinking as a methodology, right? You know, really cool software that nobody uses is no good. Other questions? Yes.
Hello. I actually completed a certificate in web design at DeVry. So
Great.
everything you're saying is 100% true.
A testimonial.
No, it really is a
Thank you.
testimonial. Like,
It's
I'm
very nice of
successful.
you to say that. I knew I was right, but now they do
Yes,
too.
I can confirm it. I'm successful in my courses because, you know, the way I think about everything is different on my
Thank you
approach.
for sharing that.
My
Thank you.
question was more regarding AI. You mentioned it earlier. How do you feel about that? Should we take an approach more directed towards learning more about AI in the long term of our careers, or how do you feel about how that contributes?
Thank you for the question. So last year I spoke about AI and I didn't think I knew what I was talking about, but she says I'm laughing. Yeah, I mean, AI is, it's with us, it's moving fast. I think my big theme is how do we use ethics? The ethics of AI is something that I guess encourage people to learn about and think about, because like all innovations, we will screw it up before we figure out how to regulate it and deploy it. You know, that was true of automobiles 100 years ago. You need to set speed limits and have the turn signals and seat belts, and AI will be the same thing, I think. And there's a lot of discovery, and we're going to make a lot of mistakes. So one of the things that I'm encouraged about by people like yourself and the others in the room is you'll be making some of those decisions of how to use it, how to deploy it, not just the technology of it, because things are getting smaller and faster and cheaper, but how do we use it? How do we prompt it? What's the prompt? What's the question we're asking to solve? How do we use it in business? How do we use it in healthcare? I mean, the potential for healthcare is, we're gonna cure cancer because of AI, probably. I don't know when, but a lot of it will be because smart researchers ask the right questions. So yes, of course, you should learn more about AI and try to stay knowledgeable. There's a wealth of information on it. And in the case of the design aspect of it, the design aspect is who's going to use this AI? How are they going to use it? How do they want to use it? And make sure you're building it or deploying it accordingly, including the ethics of it. One more question? Yes, sir. Pass it over.
Examples of companies that are design first, that have a design first or even design second culture that have a ratio of maybe 1 in 100?
Yeah.
Designers?
Well, there was that list in my deck, if you can look at, those are all good examples. And most of them are consumer products type companies. Some might surprise you, like, steel cases on their office furniture, company. Car companies, spent a lot of time, many decades not being design oriented. They just sort of built what they wanted to build, and then global competition forced them to think differently, right? And that will happen in other industries as well. I have to be honest with you and tell you, I can't rattle off a bunch of companies. I mean, the technology is interesting because now expectations have changed, right? I tell people, what do we want? We want things that are Google fast, Apple easy, and Amazon user centric. Amazon knows what I want to buy before I know I want to buy it. We found this, I get these notifications on my my Amazon Echo, right? We found something that was on your wish list, or based on your buying history, we think you should buy a new sweatshirt. Then it's scary, but they're usually right. So my point is, that's the expectation: fast, easy, and targeted at me. And companies are getting that message. It's different. It's easy to understand that in technology. It's not as easy when you're building chairs. So I think you tend to find technology companies have more of that orientation. Consumer products companies, Procter and Gamble, Mars Candy, hopefully. That's why you have orange and black M&Ms at this time of year, because people want orange and black M&Ms, not just because they decided that orange and black was a good color. People want orange and black to decorate their candy tray. So it's not a very good answer, but look at that list of that chart in my deck, and there's a really good list there. And go to Design It Business, that website, and see the companies that are part of that consortium, because they would certainly fit the criteria of being design oriented. They're spending time and people resources. I think we're about out of time. One more or none more? The last few charts in my deck, which your professors have, is about my career advice. But I will say about LinkedIn, I'll make this offer. I know there was you'll hear people talk about, you're welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Don Ginocchio. There's only one Don Ginocchio out there. I'm happy to connect your network with me. I promise I won't stalk any of you. I really have no interest or time to do that. But you will find I have a very powerful network in this industry, and you never know. I got laid off 3 times in my career. It was all very cordial. They hand you a bag of money and they say, get out. And the bag of money is never very big, never big enough. But it forced me to build a professional network and to use my colleagues and friends to find the next opportunity. And I was very fortunate to find great opportunities, but it was because I had a professional network. So I encourage you to start building yours now. It'll pay off later. I can guarantee you're going to change jobs more than once. I doubt very much that will be wrong for any of you. Sometimes by your own choice, hopefully by your own choice. I mean, I made 5 job changes. 3 of them were my choice. 2 of them were somebody else's choice. But it's good to have a professional network and to have friends that can give you advice and feedback. Ask for feedback and take it with humility and use it. Okay, enough for me. My time is up. Have a good day. Good luck with your studies. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I promise I will accept your invitation if I see it coming from NEIU. My network may be of value to you someday in the future. Okay, thanks.